Hey guys, hope you are doing good. So welcome Satvik to our channel, and
Hello,
thanks for
hi
taking.
guys.
Hi. So thanks for taking out time. So I understand that you'd be very busy with your internship, and you've finally got some time to come online and answer all those questions. So it's really great that you took out some time. Thanks for that. So let's just wait for a minute and then we can get started. So
Sure, sure.
so till
And
then.
thanks to you also for having all these sessions with people to help other students.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do something so that, because you know that this pandemic has this year will like really impact the placements and stuff. So
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah, so any help we can give, that's it. So let's just wait for a minute and then we can get started. Until then, basically you guys can keep on posting questions you have. So we'll be taking up questions in the end. So I think we can get started now. So maybe we can start with your introduction.
Yeah, so I'm Satvik and I'm studying computer science in IIIT Bangalore. So I'm doing a 5-year course, integrated course there, and right now I'm in my fourth year, pre-final year. Um, so I mostly work on personal projects, and the projects are around educational domain. Um, and I do a bit of competitive programming, not much. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much all. Yeah.
Okay, nice to know. So basically, so you are doing currently internship with Google, right?
Yes.
So how was it like? How did you got that opportunity, or how did you apply it? So from the very start, or maybe you can start from like 2 or 3 months before the process started. So you would be preparing for the internship, right? So maybe you can start from there and then tell like how was your journey in during preparation and what sort of things you were doing at that time.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So my job preparation started around May of 2019 to July of 2019, basically the last year summer, and I spent totally about 1 month because I had to travel and things like that. So what I got to know is that most of these companies ask questions from lead code, and that's a secret they don't tell you. About 90% of all questions I've ever heard in any of the companies are from lead code. I can tell you that. So that helps a lot. So that gave me motivation. I was like, okay, if I at least finish lead code to some extent, I'll know most of the questions. That was the thing. So yeah, so prepare from lead code. That is the coding part. Then the other things like OS, DB, and networking, you should do it from other sources. Yeah, so but that's not relevant to the Google internship, because in the Google internship they only ask computer algorithmic and data structure based questions, and only coding. They don't ask anything else. So going to the application process, I applied in the beginning of August, and the application I applied off campus with referral. The application portal was open only for 2 days, so in the 2 days time you had to go in and apply. Not sure why they did that, but even then they said they had 10,000 applications. So yeah, uh, and yeah, without referral it would be very tough. So I think referral is like a must. It's like you really need it. Yeah, getting a referral is not really hard. You can ask any senior and any employee there, message them on LinkedIn and ask. If your profile is good enough and they think you can crack the interview, they will give a referral easily. So that was not a problem. Then yeah, so then you applied, and then another way of getting a call is Kickstart. A couple of my friends got through Kickstart. So they didn't get a very very high rank or something, but they did reasonably good, and they got through Kickstart. So Kickstart is also an important thing to. Yeah, and then they schedule an interview, and yeah, so at that time I got more serious in the preparation. Like, it was about 2 weeks time, so those 2 weeks I prepared more. There I did a lot of mock interviews with seniors who work at Google or others who know how the interview would be, who are working in other companies like Adobe, Microsoft. So I did a lot of mock interviews, and doing mock interviews is important. I could probably come back to that later. Shall I go about how the interview itself was?
Yeah, you can go.
So I had two interviews, both were telephonic. That means online interviews. Both were 45 minutes each. First interview was a single graph question. It was moderately hard, but uh, yeah, with the hints I was able to do it. The second interview was more easy questions. They were like small puzzle type questions, all coding only, like print the diagonals of a matrix and things like that. Such questions. So, so I'll tell how an ideal interview should go. This is all the advice that I've collected from my seniors, my own experience, and mock interviews and everything. So first, when you go, you have to introduce yourself very well. So you need to practice introducing yourself, like 45 seconds or 1 minute, pitch about yourself.
Right.
That's important because it sets the perspective of the interviewer, like what he can or she can expect from you, and things like if there's something interesting about you, have you done some interesting project, or there is some talent which is rare, which some kind of dancing or singing or such kind of things. It can impress them and starts in a good way. So that's important. Then the interviewer will tell you a question. So it's very important that you pay full attention to this question. And if you don't understand anything, you need to clarify. And even if you feel that you know the question, please pay attention again, because it could be possible that it's a variant of a question that you have already seen. And if you start answering based on that question, the interviewer will know that you're answering based on memory, and then that will be a trouble for you. And it's a good idea to repeat back the question, so that if there is a mistake in your understanding, the interviewer will be able to correct you early in the interview rather than late when time has already been passed. So most companies will have very strict time for the interview. 45 minutes means 45 minutes. So that's important to keep in mind. Then always start with the brute force algorithm, because at least you get the brute force out. And the moment you get the brute force out, it sets a good starting point, like, yes, I have at least got the brute force out. It also makes it clear to the interviewer and you that you have understood the question right. And that is an important thing, because that's like the worst thing that could happen. You knew the answer to the actual problem, but you understood the question wrong. So then that's the worst thing that could happen. And as you give the brute force, you can say slowly optimizing. So suppose the brute force is exponential, then maybe n cubed, then n squared, then an n log n solution if possible, things like that. And you can be quick about this. You don't have to give full explanation. They also understand that you know what you're talking about. As long as they get it, it's fine. So within 5 minutes, you can throw the brute force out, clarify all your doubts and everything. Um, and then one thing to do that's very important is think out aloud. And why that's required is actually the interviewers want to know how you're thinking. I mean, that's their goal of the interview, to know whether you're thinking logically and all. So suppose you don't get the answer in the end finally, but if they felt that you were thinking very logically and all the observations that you made were very smart or intelligent, that could be a plus point in their feedback when they finally write. But if you're just sitting for 10 minutes and you probably went to very much depth in the question, but they didn't know about that, and that's actually a negative point. They'll think this guy doesn't know anything. That's why he's sitting quiet. So it's good to think out aloud. Plus, if you're getting into getting lost in a direction where suppose you're thinking very strongly intuitively in such a greedy problem, and you're thinking that we'll get a greedy solution, the interviewer will say no, greedy will not work. Think about something else. So then that will save time. Plus, you don't mess up that way.
Right.
And most interviewers will give you a hint. Say the interview is 45 minutes, and within 20 minutes, you're not having much idea. They'll start dropping small hints and then slowly dropping big hints. It's very important that you give real importance to these hints, because these hints are actually the clues to the solution. Like when I've done mock interviews with my friends, some of them do not listen to my hint, and that actually is a very negative thing because the interviewer is trying to help you and will get frustrated that you're not actually taking his help also.
Right.
So it, listening to the hints is very important. Then many people think that getting the algorithm and writing the code is all that is there. That is not true. At least in Google interviews, they give so much attention to how you explain, how you demonstrate the problem, and how you approach the problem, then how you write the code elegantly, whether you created a lot of variables, whether you manage with less variables, whether you wrote the function names properly, the variable names properly, so many other things. The overall experience matters, just not whether you got the solution or not. And another good point that I have is that always give some out of the box type questions or and ideas to the interviewer. So say there is like this happened in my real interview. I had some question where I had to do parse a string and manipulate a string and give some response. The interviewer asked, "Is this the best solution? Can you do it better?" or something like that. I didn't have any idea, but I just suggested that maybe instead of reading the whole string at a time, you can read it from batch by batch. So then it could be handled by file, and so you could read a lot of data. It was something very basic actually, but the interviewer was quite impressed with that. So it's good to give out of the box solutions, which is not really applicable to the problem right now, but still could apply in some other situation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, that's pretty much all I had about the interview. This
Okay.
how interview goes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that was like a very quite informative and quite detailed. So like I think people can really pick out points from those and really implement those. So that was really informative. So now let's dig deep into the preparation part. Maybe you can tell more about like how one should prepare for interviews. Not specifically for Google, but for
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
any company.
Okay, okay. So, first thing is remove the notion that competitive programming is interview preparation or competitive programming is required for interviews, for cracking interviews. That is not true. So, competitive programming is all more algorithmic and is more ad hoc oriented and somewhat less concept oriented. More, you need that kind of different kind of thinking there. So in interviews, they ask more data structure oriented, more conceptual, and it's somewhat different. Not really easy to say how, but yeah. Of course, if you do computer programming, interview questions are easier. There is no doubt in that. But having said that, you don't need to do computer programming for interview preparation. So I was in my third year when I started doing interview preparation. So it was third year summer, and I started doing it from lead code. And yeah, at that time I didn't know much actually in about I was aware about the concepts but not practice. So even C++, STL and things like that, I wasn't very familiar with them. But so what happens is once you get started, start with the easy questions. It's very important that yes, you just have to iterate an array and return the value or something. Yes, those are easy questions, but it's important to do them because you will see how others have done. Maybe you wrote 5 lines for it, someone else wrote 2 lines for it, and you will learn from that how you can write elegantly, and you will learn more advanced concepts. So if I use C++, the recommended is C++ or Java. Python is also fine, but not that much recommended because some data structures are not available in Python. Yeah. Um, so that's what. If you do, I did about 500 questions by the end of my, not 500, 400 questions by the end of summer, and that gave me a good amount of confidence and clarity on how to do these interview type questions. So according to me, if you do 300 questions, you are very much, you know, full practiced and top of your game. If you do up to 500, that's like your best you can get. More than that, it would be overkill, but you can always do. There's no problem in that. And the reason why I'm saying that is, as I said, almost all the questions come from lead code. And I don't recommend Geeks for Geeks because the questions there are not of really good quality. Questions are repeated, solutions are not exactly right many times, and the test cases have bugs and very weird corner cases which are not explained properly and things like that. So it's less efficient, and I just did not like it. And also, the number of questions on Geeks for Geeks is very high. On Lead Code or even Interview Bit is a good option as well. So, for a very important part of interview preparation is mock interviews. Um, so, there are two websites, Pramp.com and InterviewBit. So, let me repeat, Pramp, Pramp, and InterviewBit, which allow you to have mock interviews with a random person on the internet. So, they're pretty good for practice. And you will give an interview with someone, and he'll take an interview from you, and so both of us will get practice. That's how it works. If you can get into mock interviews from seniors or friends who are good at interviews, or even peers who are same as you as interviews, that'll be really good. I don't think I have anything more.
Okay, so that was also quite informative. So
Yeah.
let's now move to the projects part, because students generally have this in mind, like they don't understand that how many number like how many projects are enough, or what should be they working on, what are ideas they should be working on in the college, and does projects really help in the interviews, or and also basically how to mention them on the resume so that they stand out of from others and get a chance to get interviewed. So maybe you can tell
Yeah, yeah,
more
yeah.
about.
Okay, so projects may not directly help in interviews or even getting called for interviews, because mainly the HR people who see it don't really understand the projects to appreciate it much. They kind of see the technologies used and make some assumptions on them. And they also know that students write anything they want as project, so they don't give importance to that. Uh, that is about the selection part. In the interview, of course, the interviewer will ask you your project, and if you have done a very good project, that is very impressive to the interviewer. Depending on the company, for example, Google does not really care much. The interviewer will just hear your project and proceed with the coding question. But some companies will care, and the hiring committee will definitely care. But why I feel projects is really important, in my personal opinion, is that with projects you get a very deep understanding of how things work. So, for example, you do computer programming, even the hardest problem maybe goes to 300 lines, at max 1000, right? I don't think any solution has more than 1000 lines. Like, you can't obviously write 1000 lines in a contest, right? So you're always tackling small problems. You're not tackling big problems, large complex problems which have many moving aspects, and so always any problem you take, you break it down. Each individual problem is easy to solve, but how you solve a problem such that everything works together is the challenge, and that is basically design of the solution, and that you don't get by doing anything else apart from doing personal projects. Even in your internship, or even maybe when you join the company in like after you graduate, you'll always be doing a part of a big project. The overall project has been decided by someone above you with 10 years experience or whatever, and you don't get that opportunity. So when you do your own project, so when I say own project, I don't mean like a hello world project and things like that. Actually put a lot of effort in it, put like 2 3 months of effort in it. you know Make sure, like, publish and deploy it. It's a mobile app, deployed on Play Store, iOS store, Apple Store, and see how many people are using it. Are there bugs? Okay, there are bugs, how do you fix it? And that kind of projects is what I'm trying to refer. Even if you don't do it to that extent, still personal projects give you that insight into how you design. You do the whole thing, right? You start from the user interface, you do then product features, then you start with the backend and the database design, schema design, and all that. I mean, I don't see how you can get that real practical experience from anywhere else. Like, internships will give to some extent, depending on how good their internship was and things like that. But doing projects is something in your control. I personally feel that's something everyone should do. Plus, when you do projects, it builds your passion, which is also something that you own yourself. No one can take it away from you. And of course, in an interview, uh, having good projects is fail safe, because you can always describe projects you have actually worked on very well, and will always impress the interviewer. So that's pretty much all I have.
Okay, nice. So now maybe we can talk about like how to prepare for core subjects like OS, DBMS, networking.
Yeah, so ideally, the best first preparation is when it's taught to you in your course in college. You should try and prepare your best over there. So I know that many college professors are not that good. Sometimes we also don't learn and listen. So, but still, like if you are still in first year, make sure you put effort in the important courses to understand as much as possible the first go itself. So for me, actually, OS was not a good course in college, but database was a very good course in college. So I did not prepare anything more than the course. So I can give a hint on OS. So for operating systems, now operating systems is very important, because even though we don't directly use it, many of the concepts are scheduling, multi-threading, parallel programming, and things like that. They can be used in so many scenarios, and they're all really based on the OS concepts finally, because they finally borrow it from that, or related to that. So one good course that I have done, I have seen and done, is in Udacity. There is an introduction to operating system course. You can do it for free. It's really good. Like I did not find anything better. Even Geeks for Geeks is not a very good place to do, because they just throw in random topics in an incoherent way. But you can still do it if you have not much time and you need to quickly do. But yeah, then yeah, database, I don't really know any scores, but I'm sure there'll be many over there. So in database, you really need to understand schema design, because they'll ask you a lot about that and different ways to optimize. So if I ask this, if the interviewer asks this question, how will you optimize a database? You should at least have five different answers for that. It could be indexing, it could be, I don't know, so many other things. So you need to have like 5 points over there ready to roll out. Mm, Other topics is uh, core programming concepts like object-oriented programming, recursion, and related things. So you can ideally pick one language like C++, Java, or maybe Python also, and go full in depth in that and try to understand as much as possible. So any of these languages, their depth is infinite. There is really no limit to how much you can understand. So for example, in C++, if you go and start learning template programming and meta programming, it just goes way above. It's not possible to finish it. But at least if you are aware that there is something called template programming and it's a whole world over there and so many things are possible, when an interviewer, even when you get a project in your internship, you'll know that it's there, and you can leverage that knowledge, of its existence at least, to do a better job, whatever happens. And things like polymorphism and inheritance and all, again, those things you really learn only when you do your own projects, just by studying the concept. It's just, yeah, inheritance extends the class, composition also extends the class in some way. But why are we doing both, which to do when, all that only comes through project and personal experience, or professional experience. But yeah, so at least you need to know the language constructs. So if so some most companies don't do this, but some really upcoming companies throw in an OOP based question at you and say this is the class structure, and I implement this class using that class as inheritance. So I mean, those are, in my opinion, are very good questions, but challenging to do if you are not familiar with the language constructs. uh, Now the next thing is design patterns. So design patterns is basically, again, it extends on object oriented programming. So things like command pattern, factory pattern, strategy pattern. There are about 23 design patterns, I think. So you can find them anywhere on internet tutorials, point Geeks for Geeks, all of them have it. So they're actually very easy. If you read them, you'll find them as common sense, but they have so much power and value in them. So suppose the interviewer asks you a question, say, how do you design a paint program? My MS Paint, where you just draw stuff. And it's an open-ended question. Of course, you can say, if you are from the front-end domain, you can say you will create a canvas, and you'll draw the strokes and something like that. If you're a back-end person, you can probably start with how you would store the data and something like that. And maybe so when a question is open-ended like this, you should try and think about how you can give out of the box features like say real time collaboration, paint with real time collaboration, so things like that. Anyway, so why our design patterns is important here is this. So there is something called command pattern. It's very simple. It just means that whatever you draw, you can put it into an object and store it in as something called command. And that command has two functions called do and undo, or rather execute and uh, unexecute or something. You just say I will use command pattern for this. That's it. The interviewer is definitely going to be impressed because it means command pattern. It also indirectly means a lot of other things, and you're in the right direction in how to solve a problem. So that's why design patterns is very important, and you can easily use the concepts in design patterns in many places. And last topic is system design. So design patterns and system design are different. So system design is basically how you design large systems, and that involves concepts like load balancing, caching, database sharding, consistent hashing, and distributed protocols, and so many things like that. So no need to go that much in depth, but even if you know a little bit, so some companies do directly ask system design questions. So for them, you need to know. Um, but most of them don't really ask. But you can indirectly use the concept that you know from there, and again leverage them and impress the interviewer. Yeah, one thing I missed when I was studying about lead code. So most companies actually don't ask very hard questions. Okay, so they mostly ask the easy and medium of lead code. If you do code forces, that would be ABC level. Though, as I said, code forces don't really. The questions are very different from code forces. Yeah, a very few companies like DirectEye and Coordination, and I'm sure a few others, ask the really hard questions. But I really don't think you should be preparing for them as such, unless you are aiming for such companies. But by and large, most companies do ask the medium and easy questions. Um,
Okay, so
yeah.
now let's talk about the like circuit verb. So basically, the project you started. So maybe you can tell more about this project and how you started, and like its journey with Google Summer of Code and other.
Okay. Okay. So I started in my second semester. So my friend and I, we were feeling guilty that we hadn't done anything the first year. So and I didn't even know HTML at that time. So actually, that was my first HTML project. I mean, a project for the web. Nothing I had done that was based on web before. Um, so yeah, it started like that. We were like, what do we do? We had a course on digital logic design. So we were like, let's make some software that can simulate it. So, I mean, we borrowed concepts from an existing software called Logism, which we were using in the course. So, yeah. So the concept idea itself wasn't hard because we borrowed the concept from there. But we were like, let's just start. We'll just see what we can do. We started with like, okay, we drew an AND gate the first day. We just drew an AND gate, and we were very happy as we were able to move the AND gate. That's all is happening there, and that's how it started. I'm not even joking. That's how it started. Then we were like, okay, let's just see if we can resolve the logic in JavaScript. Forget the rendering part, the circuit logic in JavaScript. Just if I give two inputs to the AND gate, will I get the output correctly? No need to render it. It's just we'll do it, by like hard code addresses and all that. Yeah, so we were able to do that, and in first year that was itself a big achievement for us. So we were able to combine multiple gates, OR gate, NOT gate, and all those other gates. And slowly, as I said, right, any big project or any big problem, when you break it into small tasks, they're all very individually very easy to solve. So yeah, that's what we did. One big challenge we had was how do we draw wires, and that was because there's so many things in handling the UI, the connections, the internal connections of the graph. The whole circuit is a graph, right? So internal connections of the graph and things like that. So that was a very big challenge, and then we overcome that. Uh, I mean, can't go into the details, of course, but yeah, after a point, we were like, oh, okay, we could do that, and we overcome that. And then slowly the challenges became more and more complex, like how now I drew a circuit, now I want to reuse the circuit, like how you write a function and you want to reuse the function by calling it multiple times and things like that. And we started with that. Slowly it grew on. Then we initially we never had plans that it will actually be a real software. Slowly we built all the backend and made it like a proper platform with and added features for professors to use and all. So in my second year, my college professor luckily agreed to use it in his course, and he started using it. And immediately there were a lot of bugs and a lot of problems. And all the juniors, many of them are on this call, I believe, they started complaining to me and telling like it's not working, bro. Our assignments are crashing, and we're losing all the progress. So just so much of pressure for me because I told my professor that everything will be fine. You can use my project software; it'll perfectly work. So I had to work day and night to fix them. Slowly over time, I had to fix them. They were actually very tough to fix because it was like the whole thing used to just freeze and nothing. I could not debug easily. I couldn't use debugger and things like that. There was one place where I had a very difficult to catch memory leak. Actually, the opposite of memory leak. Some object was not getting garbage collected, so it was like a whole 1 GB of RAM was being used for a very small circuit for some unknown reason. So doing debugging those things had to go through the memory and all that. So it was a challenge. It was fun, of course. So after second year, most of the bugs were resolved, and that was my second year. I mean, so yes, slowly the project grew. It was gaining some popularity on the internet. Some many universities were using it because there was no online software it had anywhere close to CircuitVerse in terms of features and functionality. So in third year, simply out of fun, I was like, let's just apply to GSOC. Let's see what happens. I mean, I was like, it wasn't really. There was not much hope. We in the proposal we just wrote like we are a small team of very passionate developers who have a vision to make education free and all those things and things like that. But I think what made Google attracted to our project is the fact that it's student oriented, and that definitely had a huge bonus point in our project because most of the projects are very not easy to understand why they're used. So this was a project like literally for students and no one else. So I think that was a very big bonus point for Google when they saw it. So yeah, and then we got in, and I was initially in a panic state because I was like, okay, now how am I supposed to actually do anything? Because I don't really know that much beyond this project. I haven't done that much. I mean, I've done all many other projects, but they were all personal projects, not like other open source projects or any internship as such and things like that. I didn't really have experience to guide other students to do it, but luckily there were many people who stood up to the challenge and they came and helped um, in the organization, and so under their guidance it was fine and we were able to do, and that's how we grew, and then next year it just started happening automatically. So now I don't involve much in the project myself. I mainly guide the overall direction of the project and give ideas to the design and structure. The main code itself is handled by so many other people. Yeah, that's how it's going.
Great. So, so apart from this, basically, this circuit was. So, what were the projects you did in your college? Maybe in your third year or fourth year for your, like, what were the
Okay, okay.
projects? And yeah, and maybe
Yeah,
because people,
so
so people generally want to know like what kind of ideas they can work on. So maybe if you can like help them or tell
okay,
more
okay.
about that.
Okay, so the basically, any project is fine. So it just has to be something that you like and something that's relevant, of course. I was not into data science, machine learning, and all that, so I did not try any of those kind of projects. Of course, they have a lot of scope. Mine was mostly and full stack oriented. I mean, like web development type and graphics and simulation type projects. As you can see it from my project portfolio. Okay, so again, so since I was into education technology, another project that I have worked on is something called Webboard. If I type here, will it go to everyone?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you get it? Okay, so Yeah, so Webboard was basically an online platform where professors can write notes on the smart board, and it saves to the cloud, so students don't need to write notes and things like that. I didn't directly work much on this. I guided a team of juniors to work on it, so this was one of the more successful projects. So many projects are there, not all of them are successful, so it's important to know that.
Right.
Then another project that I was working on is a smart attendance system where the QR code is shown on the projector. The QR code changes quickly, so you can't take photograph and send to them, to your friends. And you have to scan the QR code on your phone, and within the time, if you scan correctly, it will mark your attendance. So there were some scalability issues, and yeah, so that project did not really succeed, but the proof of concept passed. So that is the project. These are the projects that I did more out of self-interest, but a couple of projects that I have worked on recently were database oriented. These I took it up as project electives myself. Means I contacted my professor and told I want to do this as a project. So one of them was building a column store, a database column store, and another one was building a distributed cache. So these are two projects that I feel has actually taught me a lot on how to write big programs in C++ from the language perspective, how to do multi-threading, thread synchronization from threading perspective, and also many concepts in distributed programming databases and things like that. So really, it can be anything. Just make sure you actually do something of substance, more than what you can find on internet, just generally and things like that. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's really great. So, so now what? Basically, we can take a few questions from the from our viewers, or maybe before that, what we can do is, so since like a lot of students want to know like how do engineers work in Google. So you are currently interning with Google. So maybe you can share your experience or what which team you're working in, if that's okay to tell, or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
related to your work.
So I'm working on the Google Docs team, and I'm working on the project which basically you can upload a Excel file on Google Sheets. Right now, it converts it properly, but it does not convert the macros. Macros is the program that you can write in Excel, so it doesn't convert the program. The program itself is lost, which is really what the power of Excel is. So I'm working on the team which will bring that conversion into reality. So that's what I'm. So unfortunately, we don't get to see much of the Google process because this year, because of the corona pandemic and all, we are
Yeah.
actually open source interns, and that means we are not getting access to the internal code or anything really. So, but
Oh,
my project is actually relevant. It is just that we're working without much knowledge of how it will integrate internally. So that's what. Yeah, I mean, like apart from that, I can just say that everyone is really friendly. You can approach them. I had attended one talk and I was very impressed with what the talk. I had some doubt. I just messaged him without thinking who he is and what. Later, I got to know he's like the director and he's just one level under VP. But still, he replied and spoke to me for like 10 minutes. So I was just like, wow, okay, very impressive. So
right.
everyone's like really nice, and the HR will take care of you like your little babies, at least during internships.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. Yeah. So now maybe we can take some questions from the chat. So Imanshu wants to know, cracking Google interview is considered one of the most difficult. Any specific tips specific to Google that you would like to give?
Yeah. Okay, so first, don't just think that cracking Google interview is the most difficult. That is not necessarily true. Many startups have even harder coding rounds like coordination, rippling, and other things. So that's not true. But one tip I will give is that yes, mock interviews is incredibly important because knowing the solution is only half your score. Your other half comes from so many other aspects which an experienced interviewer could help you learn properly, like help you do things properly. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move. So what would be a decent rank in Google Kickstart?
I don't remember what my friends got, but I think they got around 200 to 300 rank in India. So that was decent rank. It's relative, right?
Yeah. So I was a 6 months intern in a SaaS based startup, but they didn't convert it to full time. What should I do now? Will the hiring in companies start again, apart from biggies like Google, FB, Amazon?
Um, I can just say practice right now, and I don't know about how whether they will start. Even I have to be looking for 6 months now, so I don't know. I mean,
Exactly.
yeah, that's a problem because Rippling, for example, I asked, and yeah, they were like, "This year we're not planning to hire," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." That's what. It's difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. So any good project idea for the first year?
Okay, so project idea, everyone gets ideas. So when you don't think about doing a project, you'll have a lot of ideas. Everyone will be like, why can't there be an app to do this thing? Why can't there be an app to do that thing? Why is this so difficult? That's it. So when you identify such a problem, just see, okay, what can the solution be? If there is a solution, can I do it? Can I do it now? If you can't do it now, then wait for it. In the future you might be able to do it. So the circuit simulation, for example, was an idea which I had in school when I was doing some random thing. uh, yeah, but at that time I obviously didn't have any experience to do it. But right, like after about 3 years, when I came to college and learned some things, I was able to do it. So project idea inspiration really just comes from what you see around you, from other projects that you are already using, things like that. Yeah. So even the
Yeah.
other example, so the attendance thing, right? Attendance was so tedious. There are 100 people in the class. Each person they're calling out the name or the roll number, and even the professor frustrated. So that's how that was a problem. We tried to solve it. It's really
All right.
as simple as that.
Yeah. So you mentioned like you practice the questions from lead code. So maybe people wants to know that it would be helpful if you can give a good strategy to be followed
Yeah, yeah.
in lead code.
Yeah, so my strategy is kind of controversial. So most people recommend that spend so much time on a question, don't look at the solution, get it on your own, that kind of thing, so that you learn more. I was really, really going for quantity over the quality of each individual learning, because I there was two reasons for that. One is there wasn't much time, so I have to cover more. Ideally, yeah, you will solve every problem on your own. Of course, you learn more that way, but that's not feasible, right? I had to solve around 300 to 400 problems in 1 month. That was my target. So yeah. So what I did was I tackled it both randomly and topic wise. Randomly when I'm getting bored, and topic wise when I'm serious on one topic and I want to learn. So why you do topic wise is topic means like disjoints at union or stacks or queues or trees, things like that. Why topic wise is very good is once you start solving similar questions of the same kind, there are two reasons. One, you'll do really fast because you've already done this kind of thing. So the next problem you see of that kind, you can just continue fast with that. Second is once you see all the different patterns in which the same concept can be used, the next time the question comes, you will be like, yes, this is that concept. I can solve it now. Plus, it gives you confidence in that concept. And if I don't get a question, I see the solution within 5 minutes. I don't bother. If the solution was something, sometimes the questions are just like some math trick. Then I'm like, okay, fine, just code and submit. If it's some really good concept, which I think could be useful in many problems, I mark it in some Excel file or something, which means in the future I have to come and see it again. And if it's a very tough concept which I didn't understand, I just leave it, let it come back again in the future. That's how I did it. Was that helpful?
Yeah, yeah, it was. So let's move ahead. So how you prepare for algorithms?
So fortunately for me, my DSA course in college was really good. So I learned algorithms there. I mean, if you want to know what all is there to learn, Geeks for Geeks is definitely good. They have good coverage in respect to algorithms. If you go topic wise, the coverage is good. Everything that's required is there, of course. But theory of them are not that much. That's not there much. What you really need to do is actually just practice them. That is when you really understand the algorithm. And something that side which is not really directly helpful in your problem solving in terms of the interviews, but can help if the interviewer asks some question or you have to do some work, is learn how these data structures work internally. Okay, so even most people don't know how a queue is actually implemented. They all think it's implemented using a linked list. No, it's implemented using something called a circular queue. circular array and things like that. So if knowing that knowledge is really helpful in general, so that's one thing I could say. Yeah,
Yeah, right. So let's move. So what language did you use for your coding downs?
I use C++, plus plus, and
Okay.
I think most people use C++. Plus plus.
Okay. So currently I have completed my first year. What tips and tricks you would like to give me?
Um, yeah, with respect to interviews, you can. Okay, yeah, I did not say this before, but I believe interview preparation should be done in the 2-3 months before your actual interview start. Anything before that is like you're wasting time. You should be exploring something else. Okay, so yeah, so since you're in first year, I assume you have at least a year to go. You can just explore various things that your college doesn't actually teach you. Maybe game development, maybe some deep learning and things like that. So now is the best time to explore. You could even explore competitive programming if that's something that interests you, of course.
Right. So let's move and see. So should we focus on competitive programming if we have less time, or lead code or interview bit is sufficient?
Yeah, for interview purpose, competitive programming is not helpful. As I said, lead code and interview bit is all you require. Even if you do competitive programming, I would say you have to do a bit of lead code and interview bit. So that's it. Competitive programming, you should do it only if you find it very fun or interesting. It's just like a sport, like chess. It's a mind exercise. Yeah,
Right. So I have a question in mind. So did you also appear for interviews other than Google
yeah, I
before that?
interviewed a director.
Okay. And so how was your experience with them?
They asked very hard questions. In fact, what happened was they asked a question which I had seen on LeetCode, and the best part is I couldn't understand the solution when I saw it. The moment I saw that question there, I was like, "Oh my god! Now I didn't answer that time. How am I supposed to answer now?" But yeah, with the hint, I was able to do something. Yeah, so it was very
Okay.
tough.
Okay. So let's pick a few more questions. So maybe till then you can give some advice. Basically, people generally struggle getting the referral for a good company like Google. So maybe if you can suggest like how to approach people working there and ask for referral, what should be the right way, and how should they basically approach them?
Okay, so the best case scenario is finding a senior who's there because most seniors will refer, and yeah, so that is the best case like scenario. And with seniors, you don't have to explain much. You just say, "I want to refer. This is my resume," things like that. With someone else, so when you message them on LinkedIn is the best place to message. Don't just don't start with hi or hello, how are you? No, you directly say hello. I am so and so from so and so college. I have done X Y Z, and if you've done any internship that you want to talk about, you can say that. If you have done any competitive programming or you're some candidate master on code forces or something, you can talk about that. Or if you have gone to ICPC or something like that, you can talk about it. So yeah, competitive programming attracts them a lot in general. If you have done any good projects and things, you could say that. All of them should fit in the message that you post when you're sending a connection request, because first getting the connection request is important. And when you send a connection request, always put a message, because when you put a message, they will read for sure, uh, and then decide whether they want to accept or not. So yeah, that's pretty much all it is. Most people will give referrals easily because they get money for giving referral. It's called referral bonus. So
Right.
Shivam knows about it. That's it.
Right. Right.
So so see, if they feel that you can clear the interview, they will give referral without doubt, and that's how it is. So getting the referral should not be that hard.
Yeah, and I would add that the referral bonus we get is really very huge. So it's not a pain point to refer. You just have to approach in the right way, and then people will definitely refer you.
Yeah, and don't approach directors or high level people because they are like that money is not relevant to me. I have no time for all this. So
Right.
approach like big freshers or 2 years, 3 years experience. That is, they will have more time for you and they're interested in the referral bonus and all those things. Yeah.
Right. Right. So let's take up a question. So can you give some idea for the guy who is good at core plus DS and Algo in sixth semester, but have not done any project and no design pattern knowledge?
That is fine. So as I said, projects don't really help you get an interview call much, and it's just a bonus point in the interview. So you're in a good situation now because you are the difficult part, that is algo and data structures, you are familiar, and design pattern can be learned in like 3 days. It's just 23 of them, not that hard, and only about 10-15 of them are important, and design patterns is not necessary. It's a plus point in your interview. So yeah, there's nothing to worry.
Right. So we can take one more question. So how should I maintain a good LinkedIn profile? Maybe if you can share a few points.
That I am also struggling with right now. One thing I notice is good profiles don't have a lot of extra things. So my own profile, I have so many things. Most of them are quite not relevant to anyone, and that's a negative point. So because when they see a profile, the first thing should be the most highlight of you, and then the next 2-3 things should be like, okay, I've done other stuff also. That should be all. That's the is what I think. And there's this features for links that is there on LinkedIn, where you can add links. So if you're good at computer programming, you can put your code versus page. If your resume, you have to put. If you have a project portfolio, you can put that. Or if you have one project which you're very popular, very passionate about, and you have done good work, and it is hosted on GitHub or something, you can put that link directly there also. So that will be good.
Right. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. So also like you have you also done internship previously to Google somewhere?
Not really. I have interned at small startups and things like that. Don't really count them much. It's more like about the startup has 2-3 people and I just helped someone do something. Not really as a corporate internship kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that's really nice. So okay. So one more thing. So you mentioned that the students should be like making the most out of their few important curriculum subjects. So maybe you can share like what all subjects should be they more focused on if they are like in a first year or maybe starting their
Okay. Okay.
college.
Okay. So yeah, of course the programming courses. Most people will have two courses. At least we had. I'm not sure about other colleges. So programming, like a basic programming course where you learn basic language constructs. So many things there, like recursion, and then some things like tail recursion and things like that. Those things are forgotten after a point. So it's good if you make notes or revise them later. And then again, the advanced programming constructs like object-oriented programming, polymorphism, interfaces, like why are interfaces good, then composition versus inheritance. These are basic questions, which basic things to know, and actually practice learning how are they used and things like that. Apart from that, of course, operating systems, databases, networking. But networking, at least in my college, we didn't learn the really relevant things. We learned all about the network stack, the 7 layers, or whatever, all those things that were there. I mean, after that, I forgot all of them, and I can't see it being used as a software developer. Like ECU students who are into core networking, of course, use all of it. But as a software developer, where we work on the application layer, it's not that helpful. So maybe what I'm trying to say is things like what is a reverse proxy server, what is DNS, how does it help, basically how internet works, how web works. You know, what is a web socket, what is push pull and things like that. So that part of networking you can learn if your course teaches you well and good. Otherwise, try to learn from projects or some course online. Yeah, so if you have any software engineering courses like design patterns, you should take it, or do it seriously. Maybe software production engineering where you learn DevOps or something like that. Yeah, that's also helpful. Mm. So this is for the web stack, full stack developer, things like that. For those who are into data science and things like that, the math courses are really much more important, because once you know math properly, you can actually understand machine learning algorithms. That's where I messed up. I didn't learn the math properly, and then I got scared of data science and I ran away from it. So yeah, don't do that. Yeah, do learn the math properly. yeah, then pretty much all there is. Is there anything else? No, it should be fine.
Yeah, so that's pretty much. So we still have 5 minutes. So maybe what we can do is you can share your experience with CircuitVerse. So it might have started like in the first year. It would have been in your personal project, and then it's slowly like turned into something else. So maybe you would have faced a lot of challenges, and maybe you can tell like what was the process, or like from your learnings of all the challenges or all the mistakes you made. Maybe you can share some of those, so that anyone else who is working on some idea or looking to create such a
Yeah, yeah,
thing, such a thing which they can, maybe they can learn from your mistakes, or they can learn from your experience.
yeah. So first challenge was, yeah, as I said, when we launched in my second year, and there were a lot of bugs, and people were very annoyed. So the first challenge was actually, that was where something I had done was actually being used and like deployed stage, and there's so many problems. Yeah, so that was my challenge, and that will come in any product that you deploy, however simple or complex it is. Even a note making app, when you deploy it, say just Notepad, you will see that there are a lot of problems which you did not anticipate. So that will be interesting to solve. Apart from that, okay, once I was like, okay, fine, it's in a usable state. How to get it popular? So one of my seniors went and put it on Hacker News. You know about Hacker News? Okay, so it's a website where people post trending news articles on tech related stuff, like Reddit for tech. Okay, so yeah, and it became popular there. It was trending for like 2 3 days, but then some expert people came and said it's not actually working correctly. The core algorithm itself seems wrong, because there was a circuit that they designed and they ran it, and they're like, this is not how it's supposed to behave. And I kind of knew that circuit didn't work, but I thought it was fine that it didn't work. But then the way they described it's like, this doesn't work, nothing works, I'm not interested. So that was like a panic moment for me, and I was like, okay, so many months of work is technically useless. So then I went to my professor and I told him like, this circuit isn't working, I don't know what to do. He was like, okay, there's this other professor who works in this domain, like he's a researcher in this domain, so he knows in and out of it. It's about resolution and things like that. So I went to him. Within 5 minutes he told a nice algorithm, which was somewhat like Dijkstra, where priority queue is involved and a traversal is involved on the graph, circuit graph. I understood in that 5 minutes, and I was like, "Oh my god, I should have come before doing the whole project." Anyway, so that was my first mistake. That is not researching, before actually developing the whole algorithm and everything. I developed on my own using common sense rather than actually learning about it. So then I went and I implemented it, and yeah, so that was took some time. That was one process. Next challenge was actually making it popular. So when I launched it online, I wasn't getting much views, and I didn't know why. It was not even coming on the first few pages. So then I researched a little bit about SEO, search engine optimization. So there are many tricks to do that you can optimize a website and make it nice so that Google will like your website, essentially. So I followed them. Then another thing, I moved hosting from my college servers to DigitalOcean. So they gave us credits for free because we are open source and all. It wasn't open source then. They gave us credits because we were trying out something new. So yeah, the moment we went to DigitalOcean and SEO, and I also used Google Ads, AdSense. I spent about some 1,000 rupees on it for advertisement. I'm not sure that actually helped much, but overall, all the three combinations kickstarted the process and people started using it. So it became popular in US, India, and mostly the English-speaking countries. Mainly, I think because of the language problem. In India, students were using it, but not the professors or colleges. In US, it was mostly the other way around. The professors would use the platform, and because of that, their students came on the platform. So that's how it worked over there. Then there was a challenge that the project was not moving forward on its own. So I thought, okay, let's just make it open source and see if someone contributes, and that's how it kickstarted it, and now it's going on its own. That was the final challenge, up to say. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really nice. So it was really very informative, and learning from your experiences was really nice. I hope students will would really appreciate, and like they would really, um, based on your experiences, based on the points you mentioned, they would really want to learn it and maybe find a good job for them and make the most out of their college life. So I appreciate you taking off time. I understand that doing internship with Google and still able to find time is really very difficult. So I really appreciate that, and
And I also
I want to
appreciate
think.
for you doing this.
Yeah, so that's okay. So I just feel that it's very less, so I can even do more. So
I don't know what's happening. Is it still live? I can't hear anything. Okay, so it is live. Shivam, I think this got disconnected. Okay, so it is live. Shivam, I think this. Okay, maybe I'll just answer a couple of questions so that Shivam can come back. Um, how should you one start prepping with only a month left? A month is more than enough. You have 30 days, and every day you can learn a lot. So don't underestimate 30 days. So even if you solve, say, 3-4 problems a day, you can reach 200 problems easily. So that's not my problem. Best resource to study software engineering concepts. Um, so software engineering actually cannot be learned as such. It's more to be experienced. But design patterns come under software engineering, and that can be learned. So maybe that's one thing you can look at. Can you share the approx percentage of easy, medium, and hard problems from lead code? Okay, so about 25% of the problems are easy, 50% is hard, and 25% is 50% is medium, and 25% is hard. So the target problem that is easy and medium is about 75%. So design patterns you can learn from. I learned it from a book called Head First Design Patterns, and I think Shivam is back. Yeah, I learned it from a book called Head
sorry
First.
guys, I sorry.
Yeah.
So my connection stopped working. I thought yeah, yeah. So I thought you actually it's not working right now. So I thought you would just close the
I wasn't sure. Okay.
and so yeah. So the
Yeah, I
connection
think I'll
in
just
my
answer the
phone,
question that was.
I saw that you were still taking the session. So
Yeah, yeah.
so maybe we can close the session. So that was really helpful from you. So I think we can close the session. It was really informative, and I really wish you all the best for your future. So thank you. Thanks for taking off
Thank you.
time.
You too. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Take care.